Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, we have the Eagles' first preseason game in just 3 days. So we're going to do a pre-preseason 53-man roster prediction right here on your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to a Tuesday edition of the show, episode 2 of 5 this week. Download it into your phone wherever you get the podcast, free and available on all platforms, as well as on YouTube and on Twitter. Hit us up at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE, and at GC24_football. Gino, 3 days away from the Eagles' first preseason game against the Jets. So I thought we're going to do a little Mock Draft Monday style 53-man roster projection where we're going to break down each position. So you might get quarterback, I get running back, and we're going to get this thing down from 90 to 53, which it's coming up soon, man. The Eagles got to get to 53 in a few weeks.
This part of the year, especially with the Eagles roster, is going to be very interesting because there's multiple positions where they're deep, and where do they want to keep multiple players? Do they want to keep 4 running backs? Do they want to keep 6 wide receivers? Do they go light at tight end this year? Do they
always changes, man?
Tight ends? It
always changes. It gets to 53, and then they make moves after that too. So it always fluctuates.
Yeah, that cut down date to 53. There's going to be influx, maybe 2-3 more guys in there, and the practice squad having the ability to sign multiple veterans to your practice squad will also be an instrumental piece as well. So the next couple weeks for the pro personnel department in Philadelphia is going to be very interesting. And we always know it's August, Lou. How many times has Howie Roseman made a move this time?
Yep, a lot. I believe
Corey Graham wasn't signed until August, and I broke the report that he was coming back.
Yes, you did.
After
that was
the
your
Super
first
Bowl
big
year.
break.
Yes,
but
I
believe Jimmy Kempski of the Inquirer, or the Philly Voice, actually did a breakdown. I think Howie Roseman, since he's been a GM, has made 16 trades in the month of July and August in the summer. So he's always looking to make moves. So, even after this thing gets... Yeah, Dorial Green Beckham, no matter what, even when this thing gets to 53, it's always going to be ever changing. So in segment 2 and 3, we're going to predict the 53-man roster before preseason action starts. Of course, that is a key component to this evaluation process. But right now, we're going to do this to take a look at who's shining and who's struggling right now at training camp, which is another big part of the evaluation process as well. But, Gino, yesterday on the show, we were talking about the open practice at the link on Sunday, and we were really talking up the reliability of these 3 weapons for Jalen Hurts this year: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. A.J. Brown specifically, who we kind of compared to, it's like this could be the new Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz, combination where it's just unreal chemistry. It's the quarterback's go-to security blanket. And, A.J. Brown's been the talk of the Eagles for months. He got the biggest standing ovation at the link on Sunday. But it's crazy how close things in the NFL could have gone a different way. Like, they were so close to having this entire offseason look completely different. And I love what ifs. And I thought about one yesterday about A.J. Brown. It's like, yes, you got A.J. Brown in the NFL draft. You traded a first-round pick with Tennessee to get him. Tennessee takes Treylon Burks. But what if, a month before that, dude, they were about to close in on a trade to land Calvin Ridley from the Atlanta Falcons. And if that's the case, you're not trading a first-round pick for Brown because you deal a 2+ for Ridley. And so it's kind of interesting to see what they would have did then with their extra first-round pick in the draft. It's crazy in the NFL how, sometimes tight things could be between one scenario and the other.
We've talked about doing the show of the butterfly effect of Brian Westbrook signing his contract.
I'm a sucker for it.
All those years ago, and how it led to the Eagles eventually getting to the Super Bowl. And it's a very long... it's a conspiracy theory-esque type of talk, but there's real fact behind it. And you're 100% bang on when you say just how close were the Eagles to not even landing AJ.
Thank God it went this way, man, because A.J. Brown over Calvin Ridley all day. I think there's quite a – Ridley's great, but there's a tier 1 is Brown. I think Ridley's more in that tier 2, tier 3 kind of top receiver.
And we'll attack this in 2 ways. I want to start with the first thing you said about the connection. Could it be Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz? I hope it's closer to when Terrell Owens got here with Donovan McNabb, and that connection was instant. It made an impact immediately. You saw how the offense progressed from year over year, and I truly believe A.J. Brown has that ability to do so with his skill set, with his connection to Jalen on a personal level and on the field. It seems that they have really good timing down so far, and they've only been together for a few months. But going back to the whole domino effect, go back a couple of years ago when the whole idea of these premier wide receivers being traded started. Could they have landed Odell Beckham Jr.? Could they have got DeAndre Hopkins? Could they have gotten Stephon Diggs? One of those guys. Could they use a first-round pick to trade up into this year's draft? They definitely could have did that and grabbed one of those guys, but they had aspirations elsewhere. And what if Tennessee picks up the phone and Arizona's calling, who traded for Hollywood Brown? What if that happens prior to the Eagles making their deal? Do they end up with Hollywood? I'm glad they end up with A.J. Brown because
I was going to say, I think of all the scenarios that happened, Gino, I think we landed in the ideal universe of this multiverse.
Absolutely. Would it have been great to draft one of those young guys? You and I were very high on a lot of them.
That's what I was going to ask you is like, who do they – because if they trade for, let's say, Calvin Ridley, they trade a 2, so you don't take Cam Jurgens there, but you keep that extra first-round pick, which the Titans took Treylon Burks with. You don't take a receiver at that point, I think, because you got Devontae Smith, Calvin Ridley, and Quez Watkins. But you look at some of the guys that went afterwards. I mean, we kind of were talking about during our live draft show at that time before they had landed Brown out of nowhere. Trent McDuffie was on the board. We were thinking cornerback, Washington, Tyler Linderbaum. Maybe since you don't have that 2, you take a center from Iowa. Jermaine Johnson was on the board. Devin Lloyd. There were still some pretty good options. I am very curious to see who they would have ended up with in that scenario.
And you have to go to the trade with the Saints as well. Does that happen if they're in this position? Do they have that in the back of their mind going into draft week that we have to hold on to at least the 18th pick to get A.J. Brown? And all of that culminated in you and I reacting to one of the greatest moments in Howie Roseman history live on air. And now you look at all of the guys that we talked about. Would DeAndre Hopkins have been great? Absolutely. But he's on the wrong side of 30 right now. He's getting up there. You look at Stephon Diggs. He would probably have been an ideal candidate with his contract, with what he could do on the field. Calvin Ridley, I think the same thing. He's in that middle area of the slot. He could win in and out of his route running, win in and out of his breaks, just like A.J. Brown does. But Brown has multiple 1,000-yard seasons, something that the Eagles haven't had. He has a personal relationship with Jalen Hurts. They work together in the offseason. He is a leader on the field. You can see it. And he helps all of the guys around them. He has this iron sharpens iron mentality. Look at who Slay is battling day in and day out. Look at who Bradbury is battling day in and day out. Devontae Smith, you don't think it's a personal goal for him to try to perform as good, if not better, than A.J. Brown? You're 100% correct, Lou. This could not have gone better, especially getting him in that contract extension. The market is going to be completely reset next year because DK got his money, Terry McLaurin got his money. There's going to be a new group to pay next year that is going to look at these $24, $25 million a year APYs, and that's going to go up even more. The wide receiver market is insane, and that's only going to probably boost the cornerback market too.
I agree. I think the Eagles learned their lesson of not pulling the trigger back then when you can get a premier top weapon for your franchise quarterback. It definitely did affect Carson Wentz. I'm glad that they learned that lesson and this offseason tried multiple times to get Calvin Ridley, to get Allen Robinson. I think they were interested in Robert Woods when he was traded to Tennessee, and then eventually it all culminates into A.J. Brown, which I think is the ideal scenario. Of all those draft picks, if they did end up trading for Ridley, I predict they probably would have took McDuffie or Linderbaum, but I'm good with the scenario that we got, and the Eagles 2022 roster looks a lot better because of number 11. And Gino, speaking of that roster, coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles, I want to get into our preseason 53-man roster predictions where we're going to go do this together. So you're going to take a position, then I'm going to take a position. We're going to work together to crack this thing down from 90 to 53. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
Well, if you're listening to this show and you're a little bit hungry, Let's say you just woke up. Let's say you just had your workout. Or let's say you're even going to crash right before bed. Well, if you want something that's tasty and guilt-free, and if you haven't tried it by now, we're approaching 4 years together as a duo here at the Locked On Eagles podcast, and we've been preaching the name of Built Bar. I'm telling you, folks, these things are the absolute best. They send us samples all the time, and I am wowed by every single flavor that they put out. Their latest one, if you haven't tried this one, Lou and I are huge fans of it. Their cookie dough chunk puff. I think he has them right there, don't you, Lou? You have them right
I do, man. And guess what? This box is empty.
Yeah, he's only using it there for product placement.
That's right.
A great podcaster. But folks, I'm telling you, I have an order on the way. You can order their variety pack. You can order their limited edition flavors. They have granola bars. They have their original flavors. They have their puff flavors. Whatever you enjoy, they have a variety for you. And you can go out there and have a snack that tastes like candy, but you're only going to get 160 calories. Well, you're also going to get 17 grams of protein, only 4 carbs, only 4 grams of sugar, and all of them are covered in 100% real chocolate. They focus on the taste rather than making it chalky and making you regret your decision after you pick up one in the gas station. But if you want to enjoy a great tasting Built Bar, go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. I know things are expensive right now. Inflation's going up. Well, Built Bar, they're going to take care of you by giving you 15% off. They're always delicious, always reliable. You need something on the go. You need something quick. Grab yourself a Built Bar because we enjoy them here at the Locked On Eagles podcast.
All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Tuesday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. All right, Gino, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. We've got the preseason starting on Friday against the New York Jets. We're at 90 right now. This roster's got to get down to 53 in a few weeks. So how we're going to do this, we're going to predict the 53 together. So we're going to each be assigned certain positions, and then we're going to decide, like quarterback, you want to keep 2 or 3, and then based on that, we're going to try to strategically do that. If you go heavy on offensive linemen, I might go a little later on, I don't know, cornerback. So that's how we're going to break this thing down today. And we'll start with you. I think you're going to take control of the most important position in sports, and it is quarterback. Gino, right now on the roster, you've got Jalen Hurts, you've got Gardner Minshew, you have Carson Strong, who the Rosette, right? I'm forgetting the first name of our boy. Yeah, who got, by the way, second team reps on Sunday. So you've got 4 quarterbacks on the roster. When it comes down to breaking it to 53, Gino, how many do you think are going to be there?
I think 1 and 2 are easy. Jalen, of course, Gardner Minshew. Gets into number 3. Who do you want to rely on in that situation?
If you do it all.
If you do it all. I believe they keep Reed Sinnett because you can get Carson Strong on the practice squad. He still is going to need time to develop. They usually take this route, whether they draft a quarterback late or they get one as an undrafted free agent. They, most of the time, end up on the practice squad. And Reed Sinnett, like you said, he got second team reps. He seems to be making some better throws than Carson Strong, processing a little bit quicker. Let's hope it never gets to that situation where Reed Sinnett has to actually take snaps, because your 1 and 2 is just as good as anybody's 1-2 in the NFL.
No, absolutely. I think 3 quarterbacks is traditionally what Philadelphia does, and if one of these 2 young guys do shine in the preseason, they will probably likely keep one, especially with Gardner Minshew's long-term future, I think, being elsewhere, trying to get a draft pick for him this year or a comp pick in 2023. I agree with 3 quarterbacks there. Gino, when it comes to running back, I want to keep 4. I think Philadelphia has done that over the years, and I really want Jason Huntley on this roster right now. I know some people are kind of waiting for them to inevitably, bring in that power back, and it probably would be Jordan Howard again, but I don't think you necessarily need that in the NFL anymore. I know Howard was good for this team last year, but I'm very comfortable with the running ability of Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott together. And Jason Huntley's explosiveness is popping. I would love to keep him and Britton Covey as your top 2 punt and kick returners this year. So that's a special teams priority for me. I think Huntley has earned a spot. I think the last 2 summers he has really shined, and I think it's time that he is kept on this 53. He has explosive speed, and so they just got to get returner right, and I want to keep as many options there as possible.
They gave up a late round pick for Jason Huntley, so they obviously have a little investment in him, like when they acquired Hassan Ridgeway a couple years ago. He got the favor over some of the undrafted guys. I know at the running back position currently, Kennedy Brooks has shown a little flash in some of his snaps. But I think you're right with Jason Huntley. My special teams love. You've hamstrung me to maybe keep Covey off of there because you took Huntley, but between the two of them, you're going to get at least one good returner outside of Jalen Reagor and Greg Ward, who should not touch a ball.
So are you keeping Covey at receiver here?
All right, let's go down the list. So I got Brown, of course.
Yeah.
We got Smith. We got Quez. Our number 4 is Pascal.
Mm-hmm. So
Our number
probably
5.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets tricky. I'm going to say Covey. I don't know if he'll be the number 5. I think he'll be the number 6. And then you get into a tricky situation. Who's that last guy? Do you move Jalen Reagor before the end of the year? The Bears surely would be willing to give up a minimum pick to get a wide receiver because their top guys are all hurt right now.
And weren't top guys anyway. So
Exactly.
N'Keal Harry and Pringle, Velas Jones.
Have fun with Jalen. And Greg Ward, he always is somebody that does have the chance to stick. Devin Allen could be there. You have John Hightower in the equation too. I think they end up going with Jalen Reagor for now, because of the investment still. And
it's an $8 million cap hit if you don't trade him and end up just cutting him outright. They're not going to take that hit.
You can't do that. So I go with 6. Yeah. I think Covey might get a little more play than some people might think in this offense as well. He's going to be versatile as a special teamer. He's quick, shifty, could develop into a pretty decent slot receiver as well.
Absolutely. I agree. I had the same projection for the receivers. So we keep 6. We've got 4 running backs and 3 quarterbacks. Gino, when it comes to tight end, it's tough again because I don't know if there's 3 tight ends that are worth keeping on this roster, but you got to have a backup. You got to be able to use 12 personnel. So I think Dallas Goedert, obviously a lock. I think Jack Stahl is too for his run blocking. I actually thought on Sunday looked more polished as a receiver than I had remembered. He really did work on that part of his game over the summer because he was the second most featured tight end after Zach Ertz got traded last year. And then Grant Calcaterra, I think, is going to be your third guy. Love his natural hands. It stinks that he's had this hamstring injury over the last few weeks because he started camp pretty hot and clearly was the second most talented receiving tight end of this group. I do think they still keep him on this roster. I think he'll get healthy in time to flash in the preseason and still in camp. So I'm going to go with those 3 tight ends.
The end of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
Yeah.
I believe this will be the last.
I don't know if this is likely because they'll never quit him, so I don't know if I'm right, but I feel like it's probably time.
Very intriguing position because you also have the reliable Richard Rodgers in the equation, who you can't count out for what he did for the Eagles the last couple of years in moments where they had nobody. At one point, he was their number 1 tight end for Carson Wentz for a few stretches of games. You also have Tyree Jackson in that equation as well. Noah Togiai has had some up and down moments, but he's flashed in his second stint back in Philadelphia. I'm with you, though. Calcaterra, I believe, has that receiving element. Jack Stahl, there's an article put out a couple days ago talking about how he wanted to refine his ability in the receiving game as well. They're going to go light there. I don't think you would even consider keeping 4.
I don't think so.
You go heavier at wide receiver where there's more talent. And maybe this is a position where there's a veteran guy who gets cut and they can get him onto the roster and stash one of those younger guys, Stoll or Calcaterra, on the practice squad going into next year.
And, they always go heavy on the lines. So you have the full responsibility of going with the offensive line.
All right, I got to take it all. Yeah, all right, so let's start it out. We got Mailata.
Yep.
We got at left guard Dickerson. We got Kelsey. We got right guard Isaac, I believe, will get the starting role there. We got Lane. Andre Dillard, could he be traded? I don't know. For now, he's going to be one of the better backup tackles. I go Andre Dillard. I go Jack Driscoll.
Yep.
I go Cam Jurgens.
So that's 8.
What are we at? 8 right now. And then, man, let's go down the list.
So you've got Suo Peta, LaRaven Clark still.
Brett Toth, you got Jack Anderson, who the team is high on. You have Josh Sills. You got Cameron Todd.
I think they're definitely keeping Opeta, right? He's almost been better than Driscoll so far this summer.
I believe Opeta.
Yeah.
And then Coyote Awosika for his versatility is a very, very sneaky threat to
over
make
Clark?
it this 53-man rush. Clark, you did sign him to an extension, right? You have him on that veteran minimum type of deal, but at the same time, Driscoll could play right tackle if you need to as well. You have the versatility.
I mean, last year they moved Mailata over and Dillard 100%. At left tackle. Yeah,
and if you keep Dillard, you have that versatility. Okay. I think Awosika, I'm going horns up for the Bulls, man, and our friend Bo Wolf over at The Athletic is probably his biggest proponent in the Eagles realm, and he's wrote up a couple articles about his ability to be a versatile player, plays interior, can play left tackle for you as well. I'm going with Coyote, man. Get a Bull on this roster.
I like it. That's the first, I think, big surprise for the 53, but I like it a lot. 10 offensive linemen kept. So, Gino, total, we're at 26 players, so we've got to fill up to 53 with defense and special teams. Coming up next, right here on Locked On Eagles. But guys, first, another shout out to one of our sponsors of the day, and it's Dave. Level with me here, Eagles fans. We've all been in a situation at some point in our lives where we were a little strapped for cash, and maybe you could only afford a few gallons in your tank, in your car, or you got another save the date coming up, and you're wondering how you're going to afford that next gift. Well, that's where Dave can help. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses do come up. And they always do. Now Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. Hindsight is 20/20, and you can't change the past, but what if you could get a little help from future you? Maybe you'd ask to borrow a little bit of cash. Now you can with Dave. It's a banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy that wedding gift, or catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. There's no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief that they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download the Dave app today. It's DAVE in any app store. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Future you will thank you. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles. Gino Camilleri and Lou DiBiase getting this roster down to 53 with our preseason 53-man roster predictions. Gino, to recap on offense, we kept 26 total players. We kept 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 6 receivers, 3 tight ends, and 10 total offensive linemen. So we're at 26, which means we're going to go a little bit heavier on offense. We might have to keep one because, you're a lock to have Jake Elliott, Ricky Lovato, and Aaron Sibos, right? So we have regardless of the name at punter, we're keeping those 3 main specialists, right?
I'll just put punter down, yes.
So we have 29, yes, because he's not great, and I can't believe they haven't brought competition in, but so far he's the only option. So that would put you at 29. So we've got 24 spots for the defensive side of the football, and I'll start it off here with, I'm just going to call it edge, because I don't want to put Hassan Riddick with the linebackers. He's going to be a pass rusher 90% of the time this year. So here's what I did with the edge rushers. Okay, I went with Josh Sweat, Hassan Riddick, and Brandon Graham. Those are your top 3. Unfortunately, although apparently he's been having a quietly good summer, I'll believe it when I see it in the regular season. Derek Barnett is going to make this roster. So those are 4. And then I do think you want to keep a primary backup for Riddick, right? More of the strong side Sam linebacker, if you will, in this instance. Karan Johnson, his get off, Gino, off the line of scrimmage on Sunday was eye-popping, but Patrick Johnson looked really good too. He played a good amount of snaps last year as a rookie. If I had to put my money on it right now, I'd say Patrick Johnson is Reddick's primary backup, so I'm going to keep those 5 edge rushers.
Deron Jackson, you're just taking.
Well, again, it was between him and Johnson, but it was between him and Johnson. But I felt like with Barnett as that 4th primary 4-3 defensive end, I wanted to keep more of a Reddick type player, so I had to go with Johnson.
That's fair. I hope Derek Barnett. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it with Derek.
Trust
Barnett.
me, I'd keep Jackson over Barnett too.
I will as well. He's much more athletic. I think you got much more production out of him going into this year. But we'll see. Maybe they go 6 at the edge because they
always go heavy on linemen, so I wouldn't be surprised, man. Yeah.
So we're at 34 right now.
Yeah,
so
we're
I'm
at 34.
taking the interior, I would believe.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
All right, so you have the mammoth, Jordan Davis. And folks, if you haven't seen this clip from the open practice of Jordan Davis manhandling Cam Jurgens, who Jason Kelce himself said excelled in his anchor coming out of college, got pushed back.
He was hopping for his life. His feet left the air every time.
He didn't stand a chance. So best of luck to anybody defending Jordan Davis one-on-one. And best of luck to defending Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and then Milton Williams. I mean, man, this interior is fantastic.
Yeah.
I believe that Marlon Tuipulotu will also make this roster as that second interior guy who will replace Jordan
Sounds
Davis.
like he's been one of the most improved players, Gino, this year heading into his second season.
And he has a position that if they want to go too deep where Jordan Davis is, he's the next man up. Fletcher Cox is going to be a 3-tech. Javon Hargrave will be a 3-tech. They want to keep them at their natural positions.
Yep.
Well, they drafted Marlon last year. They're going to probably keep him on the roster this year. Then going down the rest of the list, there's not many guys that I would consider. Renell Wren had some snaps last year. Kobe Smith on the back end, Marvin Wilson. I believe those guys will all be on the practice squad. They like to keep a lot of depth at the interior and as edge as well. You'll probably see Teron Jackson there if he doesn't make it. Matt Leo has the international exemption. So I'm going with Davis, Cox, Hargrave, Williams, and Marlon Tuipulotu.
Yes, I totally agree. So those 5 defensive tackles put us at 39, Gino. So we've got 14 more spots here for the second and third level of the defense. When it comes to more traditional stand-up linebackers, I went with 5. I'm going to put Kazir White in here and TJ Edwards, your 2 projected starters. Your 2 key rotational guys for now, Davian Taylor and Nakobe Dean at 4. And Sean Bradley just makes plays every time he's on the football field. He's been
the best athlete on the team, man.
Yeah,
seriously.
He's been even better this summer. He's a key component to your special teams coverage. So I'm going to keep those 5 linebackers. I think that's pretty self-explanatory there to get us to 44. As we
maybe Jacoby Stevens sneaks into the equation. Maybe. Yeah. I believe he's still a year away. He was a safety in college, transitioning to linebacker. Yeah. Although Kazir White did say in one of his press conferences that he wowed him in the classroom, and he could have never looked at him and said, "You never played linebacker before."
Sure.
So that's encouraging to see. And you have Christian Ellis too. So I mean, there's not much depth. The top 5 should be pretty much guaranteed to make this roster, in my opinion.
So, Gino, you have corner, and this one's interesting.
You're not going to give me my position. You're going to take
no. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, you know what? Let's do corner together, and then you can do safety. All right. So
that's good.
Corner, let's say there's 3 locked in, right? Well, 4, I would say. It's Darius Slay, James Bradbury, and Avonte Maddox. Those are your top 3 starters. I'd say Zach McPherson's your main boundary outside corner.
At open practice.
He looked good, man. And Darius Slay pointed him out specifically last week, saying he's been one of the most improved players as well heading into his second year. He was battling with Deion Kane in some one-on-one drills in the back of the end zone. Physical corner. You can see the length up front, and he does move well, fluid hips. So I like McPherson. And then it just gets tough, though, because there's so many of these very similar young, late picks recently and undrafted players. Josh Jobe, actually, I thought, popped a little bit in coverage on Sunday, Mario Goodrich, but you've got Kerry Vincent Jr., Tay Gawan. I mean, Jimmy Moreland. Gino, you need a main slot backup, though, too, right? Jimmy Moreland probably makes this roster.
I like both of the guys behind Maddox. Moreland, I love Moreland. And Josiah Scott, they also traded a draft pick.
Well, they've been playing him at safety, Gino, the last few weeks,
really?
actually. Yeah, they've actually been experimenting with Scott playing some safety.
Okay, so he could potentially be that overhang type of corner safety combo. Yeah. So that's interesting to hear. I think Jimmy Moreland should make this team.
So we're at 5 with corners. I don't know. Do we go light at safety with 4 and take an extra corner here? We got 5 more spots.
Do we? I'm at 49.
So 40. So we were at 44 after linebacker. Then we've got Slay, Bradbury, Maddox, McPherson, and Moreland. So 49.
Yeah, so we have to go for safeties, I believe.
Yeah.
So
probably that's it at corner.
Epps. Yeah. There's so much talent there, though, man.
But, I will say between like Kerry Vincent, Tay Gawan, Josh Jobe, Mario Goodrich, you can stash a few of those guys in the practice squad.
100%. 100%. Especially
teams aren't going to take all those guys.
No, especially Jobe as well. Those guys are first-year undrafted free agent type of players. I agree.
All right, so at safeties,
Marcus Epps, of course. Anthony Harris. Then you go with Jaquaski Tart. Then it gets interesting. You have Andre Chassery, who's most likely going to make this roster as a
key player on special teams. Is Kevon Wallace getting cut? He has not been good this summer, by the way.
Kavon Wallace has been up and down. Jared Maiden is also a special teams guy that this team liked last year. You said Josiah Scott was playing reps there as well.
Yep.
Kari Vincent Jr. can do both. Pete Blankenship, another undrafted free agent. As much as you and I, especially myself, loved that safety class, and we're fine with getting Kavon Wallace in that fourth round, it's a what have you done for me lately league. What has he done for the Eagles at all? Andre has had a fantastic camp so far, making plays on defense as well.
Yep.
I don't think you can cut Chasserie. He's too good on special teams. It's just, it stinks, man. But Kavon Wallace, I think his time is up here.
I agree. Marcus Zapshaquisky Tart, Anthony Harris, and Andre Chasserie are your 4 safeties for 2022. Gino, we're at 53. I think overall it's pretty realistic. We'll see what happens, though. The preseason, of course, is going to impact this significantly on Friday, starting with the New York Jets. You guys make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles all day, every day, Monday through Friday. We've got a podcast for you and on YouTube as well. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter. Always talking birds all throughout the day. At Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase_LOE. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen today and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Find the intellectual fantasy expert, Vinny Liar, who brings over 20 years of NFL expertise and a unique angle to give you the most moves nobody else is going to think of in fantasy. Fantasy drafts coming up all summer. Subscribe to Fantasy Football, Locked On Fantasy, on all podcast platforms. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase. Thank you so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.